How's it going, people? Well, this is Josh here for another video. I came out to make this video a little while ago, and I had a couple subjects in mind that I wanted to talk about. And then I chose to go through my channel and I looked at my messages. I forgot about my inbox. And ever since YouTube changed the Google Plus thing, I forget about that I have a messages inbox, and so I apologize to anyone who sent me messages that I didn't reply to, but I had quite a few I had to go through the last month. And just to let people know, I do read every comment, and I can't always reply, and I made a video about this last year, and there's just too many, and I have to set my computer life apart from my home life, and it's difficult for me to do. And it really comes full circle with a comment that I got from one of my subscribers who asked me for some advice. And you know who you are. He said he's 27, I think, and he's not sure what he wants to do with his life, and he's not sure what job to take. He feels like he's stuck in a rut. That's really all I need to say about it, because we all know what that feels like, to be stuck in a rut. And I wanted to say that, coming from a person who's asking me, what to do about being in a rut, my best response to that is, I'm in a rut too. And I guess it takes courage to admit that you're stuck in a rut. And so I admire that quality in a person, to be able to just to know when you're stuck. And so I want to talk about that for a minute. Being stuck in repeating patterns. I'm going to call them life patterns and day patterns, thinking patterns. And I also would like to discuss how to break free from that, as best as I've found the ability to break free from that. Now, what got me was, he said he was 27 or so, and that's about the age when I really started getting into my kind of, might call it a partial life crisis. Started thinking, about the time I got to 30 to 35, I was really in this, what do I want out of life? And then it got to the point where I started asking myself the right question, which is, what does life want out of me? And that, for me, took me setting aside some of my desires and my wants. I want to make this money, or I want to do this. And so I had to fight between, is it what I want to do, or what is predestined or determined? It's obvious I don't believe that everything's predestined. But to a degree, it is what it is, right? It is going to be what it is. We're not going to know what our future really holds until we're in the future. But we can make decisions now which impact that future immensely, especially career decisions. So for me, in my life, when I was looking for what I wanted to do, I said, well, what can I do? What do I do? I'm a carpenter. I worked with construction. That's what I ended up getting into, because I knew people, and that's what I did. I said, well, I'm a carpenter for now. But I never really, as I envisioned my future, I thought, well, I could go from being a carpenter to working up into the fine woodworking, which is what I wanted to attain, which I finally did. And then I said, where from here? Do I want to make furniture? Do I want to do this or that? But it was always associated with carpentry, because it's what I knew. I have several hobbies and interests and things that I could make a living off of, but I can't seem to organize them in a way that is structured, and I can't put myself into one particular job in order enough to set a future. Put it this way, I'm not the kind of guy who could ever sit down and I don't give a damn about a 401k, and I know I probably should. It's the same way I feel about insurance, life insurance, and health insurance. Oh well, when it happens, it happens. For me, it's ignoring some of the things, I guess, that I could do to prevent future problems, setting up security now for my future, which I want to do. But I think that that's what gets people into this, when they get into their late 20s and early 30s, I think this is why it hits home, is because people realize that you're no longer a kid, but you're not to where you want to be yet, and you're wondering, how am I going to live, and not only that, but how am I going to live after I retire, if you retire. So anyway, I took myself what happened to me personally was that last year was the last straw. I pinched my sciatic nerve about 5 years ago. It got worse and worse over the years doing construction. I ignored it. I knew it hurt, but I knew I had to work. So this past March, about a year ago, almost, it was the last straw. I was building a deck, I was hauling beams, my back gave out, and I was incapacitated for like 2 weeks. I couldn't move, it was horrible. And I told myself during that time, it's over, construction's done. So what do I do now? Ever since then, I've been kind of stuck in a rut. And I totally can relate to, like, we have these daily things, like these daily routines that are hard to break up. Such as you wake up, you have coffee, you have a cigarette, right? You know, I have good intentions to spend my whole day straight, but I end up loading a nice fat bowl and smoking it. Which I don't find weed to be a guilt factor for me, but it has been, and that's why I wanted to address it. I drive my wife nuts over the last, we've been together for 16 years now, and 1 year I'm like, oh, I love smoking pot, it's great, it's medicinal, it helps me feel better, feel normal, and then the next week it's like, oh, I want to quit smoking pot, I want to live straight and sober, I have a few addictions that are small, that are minor. I don't take large quantities. I don't get high. I don't get wasted. I am maintaining, which includes coffee. But I mentioned my addictions, and the addictions are what get me into my rut. But when I mentioned them the other day, I said I got my 4 addictions, I guess, but I forgot to throw in the internet. Because the internet is part of that rut. My routine is to wake up in the morning, start the water, the kettle, hop in the shower, get out, get dressed, make my coffee, go out, have a stogie if I'm smoking at that point, come back in, check my messages, that kind of stuff, the YouTube thing. So let's use the example, the internet goes out, your whole routine changes. I'm sure everybody's had that experience. So the internet goes out and you wake up in the morning and you're unable to do whatever you do on the net, because I know that many people would be in denial and say, oh, I just use the internet when I need to, but I know a lot of you can relate to, some people are Facebookers, some people are YouTubers, some people are bloggers, and for me it's just YouTube. I don't use Facebook or any of the other, social networking sites. So I exclusively spend my time on YouTube, which makes it seem like I'm on YouTube all the time, which I guess I am. But if I'm outside and I have a thought, I upload a video, But getting into that rut, okay, before I get too far, because I can go on and forever about this stuff, but I'll end up just getting way off track. When you get stuck in a rut, the only way to really get out of it is a change of scenery. So that change of scenery can be either mental or it can be an actual physical change. So you can move somewhere, you can move to a new house, or you could go on vacation, go camping, whatever. Now, anybody who's gone camping or enjoys camping knows how different it feels to wake up when you're out there in the woods. You can attribute that to, many different things, but the most apparent being the mindset, that you know where you're at. The subconscious and the conscious mind are at ease. You'll notice when people wake up, if you ever wake up camping, you'll notice maybe your routine is different. Maybe you usually have 3 cups of coffee, but you only have 1, and then you get going. Or maybe you don't even have 1. Because you're camping. Things are different. Your mindset's different. It's kind of like when you get excited to go on a trip or go do something, and you're already in that zone. Let me give you the example for psychedelics, for those who take psychedelics. Anybody who, if you think that you're going to take some mushrooms, you already feel like you're tripping. It's a very strange feeling, but if you're like later on don't end up taking them, it's like your mind is prepared for these things. So that's what it comes down to. You can change your environment, but all that's going to do is change your mental state. So what's the key? To change your mental state without having to leave your environment. How do you do that? Alchemy. mental transmutation. But it's not something that's easy. It's something that I'm working on. It's taking me so long. And it's such a humbling experience. And it's why I've been so fascinated with these things. Although I've, delved into all this different occult symbolism and ancient philosophies and religions, the only thing that's really endured with me have been these principles of Hermetic teachings. The idea of transmutation, vibration. And people call phooey on it. It doesn't matter to me, because I finally found something that makes sense to me, to the point where the answer to these Hermetic teachings is basically everything's in your head. You have to change your mind to change your world. That the external world's not going to do it for you. And I think that we all know that inside, but there are a lot of complainers out there who are just waiting for the world to change. And that's not going to happen. And it's just like saying, oh well, I don't have the job I want, I don't have the life I want, and getting stuck in a rut because things become too much. And I find myself getting to the point where I'm like, wait a minute, I've got to step back from this. I could sit in this rut of being in pain and not having a job anymore, but I'm pain free now, and I'm working, doing my thing. I do what I do. I'm a stay-at-home dad and a gardener and a few other things, and I still do woodworking. I've just admitted that I can't do the heavy stuff anymore. And so for a person who's just coming in and trying to find a career path, I would say just take what comes your way and what feels right. That's going to be the easiest. To take the approach that's the simplest. It's the path of least resistance, I guess. It's really all I can put input on it. I guess there's probably just like 10-15 minutes of just garbage here talking about stuff. But it comes down to, can we change our mind and change our lives because of it? Because only a change of mind will get us out of a rut. A complete overhaul of what we think, which means casting out all kinds of bullshit. It means rethinking everything. And the reason why I chose to do this video was because by vocalizing this, I will be forced to recognize that I need to do this too. So to finalize this, I guess I'd just like to say that we're all just human. Skull is my reminder that underneath flesh and bone, we're merely mortals. We have a spirit, an essence, or maybe we don't. Listening to people debate and argue about the authenticity of particular religious works, belief systems, approving and denying certain thoughts and ideas about what life means, they've all become a waste of time. In the sense that it's fruitless trying to prove that you do or do not have a spirit, or that you're reincarnated or you're not. Any of these life issues, these things we think about. And the more sure a person is about these things, the easier it is to get stuck in a rut, because we're trying to fool ourselves into thinking that life is a certain way, or this is just the way it is. So, just remember, even if there is no other existence beyond this one, just the fact that we have a consciousness, it should be enough for us to be able to pull ourselves out of any negative mental state at any time. It should be, but it isn't, because it's a dangerous weapon, life is. Because, I should say consciousness is, because we're given free will and choice, which has become one of the biggest confusing factors in human life. The idea that all of this material world is forced upon us, yet we're given the choice to be better and to do better. And along the way we get stuck in routines and ideas that don't serve us. And that's not just as individuals, this is as a society as well. So, I don't know where we're going to go from there, but all I would say is that to the individual, if I could give any advice, and I try to be sparing with the advice I give, Although I talk about things, I say this is what I've heard, or this is what I think, but I rarely give actual advice to people, because I feel like it's almost egotistical to give advice from a person's subjective opinion. But that subjective opinion becomes empirical evidence when you've experienced it over and over. And that empirical evidence I have is that if you change your mindset and the way you think about something, your body will respond in kind, and you will be healthier, you will feel healthier, you will be happier. But we can't deny any of the other factors. Being a human is just like growing plants. People talk about putting CO2 into their grow rooms with their pot plants to give them vigor, and I say, well, that works if the light's good, the water's good, the nutrition's good. So no matter how good your mindset is, it doesn't help if you're not eating healthy, for example. And that's the mistake I make. Perhaps I'm not eating enough, or not eating healthy enough sometimes, or maybe I'm not eating the right foods, or things I know I should be, or consuming something I shouldn't, or whatever it may be. It's easier for me to say these are my personal faults, rather, because in days past I would have said people do this and people do that, but now I like to say me, because it takes the heat off other people, because I'm a faulty human too. So, to leave with parting words, I get into ruts too. I get into ruts, and I'm in one right now that I'm working on. There's minor ruts within bigger ruts within bigger ruts, but just remember that every day starts right now, and your whole life begins at this moment. The past is the past. The future is still to come. Peace out, everybody. Have a great night.